from a different star, flying over streets and a broken heart. But they can't even touch us, we found a different beat. Paradise is waiting and we bought the lead. Ooh, getting caught in the maze, there's so many that never get out of. They're feeding the fears and the doubts. Ooh, but we golden, we run to the end and we run without shame. We own the game, and we ride on the flames till the morning light. Baby, 'cause we're dynamite. Ain't nobody gonna hold us down. Break all the rules, let them run and hide. Baby, 'cause we're dynamite. Gonna let the world know.
Out of here. What's that? Okay. I thought you came out here to say something.
We're from a different time, yeah, we're of a different breed. 'Cause what we got is timeless, we supersede. And we hold in the key, yeah, we're tight as can be. We're rolling, just like we please. Ooh, getting caught in the mist, there's so many that never get out of. We're feeding the fears and the doubts. Ooh, but we go to we run to the end and we run without shame. We own the game, and we ride on the flames till the morning light. Baby, 'cause we're dynamite. Ain't nobody gonna hold us down. Break all the rules, let them run and hide. Baby, 'cause we're dynamite. Gonna let the world know. Gonna let the world know.
All right, it's time to get our dance party going. And welcome to Office Hours. It is Groundhog Day. So they're going to relive this day multiple times over. The groundhog here in Indianapolis, Indiana, from personal news gathering information. I went outside, found a groundhog, talked to them. He saw a shadow, said there's 6 more weeks of winter, and I absolutely kicked him. And, well, he may not be alive anymore. I don't know, because I don't want 6 more weeks of winter. But I am happy to have some of the best people in payments with me, and that is Jenny and Mike, who are going to talk more than hopefully I do, because, well, I talk about groundhogs and killing them. On the left-hand side of the screen, wearing the very sharp-looking blue Paprotech, little, what do you call it, polo. It took me a second to come up with that word, polo. Miss
Right.
Jenny Rickle. Jenny, I saw, recently I saw a post of yours about how much you love running and everything. But how do you do that in this winter months? You're still out there going. That's amazing.
Well, so I do have treadmill to go inside. When it's below like 20 degrees, I definitely stay indoors. And right now we went through this super cold snap where it was like -6, like 0 out. So that's when I go indoors. But I mean, I just love to get out there and get my body moving. I love it so much. Absolutely.
Well, speaking of getting out there, and I don't know about getting your body moving, but Mr. Mike Stetzel, Mike, you were a little bit of Mexico trip last week. You weren't with us. We did a 2-person show of Office Hours. How was Mexico, and how was the backlash of coming back to cold Indiana?
It was bad. That part was bad. We flew back into Chicago on Thursday evening, and it had started snowing Wednesday night, Thursday morning. And so we had quite a bit of snow to clean off, had a broken windshield wiper, but AutoZone to the rescue. They came out, they put it on, made our life simple. But we had a really nice time. Like I said on the last time we were together, we had several people going with us, and we got to spend some group time, some few couples at a time, some just my wife and I. So it really made it nice. Lots of time in the water, lots of sun, and boo to the groundhog. I believe that as much as I believe like horoscopes and other things, though. Sorry to those of you who are astrologers.
I read my horoscope every day, Mike. No, I'm just kidding.
I love reading my horoscope, but I'm always like, oh, good. I hope that happens. And then the other ones, I'm like, oh, that's isn't real.
And I always just every day keep forgetting, what sign am I? Don't know. Well, I hear the sirens going off in the background for one of you.
Yes, sir.
That is the Warsaw office up there. And Mike, But we're going to continue our process of going through Trust the Process. Just quick reminder, I'll do this quick, but we were talking about the basic process that all of us have to go through. We find an audience. That's going to be the last thing we actually talk about. We understand that we're the product, and we just work on make sure we're presenting ourselves to our merchants and helping them understand how we can come alongside them and help them and why we're important. We put together an offer, whether they need B2B offerings, they need card present, card not present, whether edge pricing, all the different things that go into an offer. And then we do a request and contract. And so I'm going to fast forward through a couple of these slides because I realized I put myself behind here. But I'm going to call these two things our step 4 and 5. So first we're saying, hey, we ask them, do you want to do business with us? And then we need to get that contract or get those docs. As AJ Levitt, I know he watches some of our stuff from up next there in Long Island. I was watching one of his posts this past week, and he was excited because he had got the docs. And that meant that he was starting the application process, and they're starting that step. Now, Mike, I'm going to come to you first. There are lots of things that are available. And after I jump to you, I'll pull up my paper tech here in a second. I need to get my second screen off the slides. But there are lots of things on my paper tech. But one of the most important things, the first decision you have to make is, do you use a paper application or are you going to do the online application when you're going after those docs? How would you make that decision and how do our partners make the decision? Because they're still both being used.
They are. And that's a really good point. Shout out to everyone watching live today. We have several people watching live. Thank you very much for tuning in live. Paper or electronic? I mean, my default answer is electronic because of the simplicity, but we all know you have to know your audience, and we have all met the person who says, I'm not putting my social security number in that computer, young man. And you know what? By gosh, I'm going to get his business because I'm going to show up with a paper application. MyPaperTech.com, I think we've done a great job organizing them. There's a set of applications for Edge. Exactly. There's a set of applications you would use if you're doing an Edge deal, as well as the free merchant placements forms for the terminals and the required setup form. As you scroll a little further down, there's a section for standard pricing, as we call it. So that's interchange plus or flat rate. You can use those applications. Again, there's a setup form there. There is a free merchant placement there. So you basically choose the documents you need, download them to your computer, and then you can either fill them in from there using, filling in the PDF, or you can download them and take them with you to see the merchant. So there's that other set of documents I was talking about. If you want to use the electronic process, we would go to partner.paymentshub.com. You want me to keep going, Nate, or are we going to have a...
Yeah, well, I'll jump into a question over to Jenny. And Jenny, I mean, I would say Mike said that sometimes it's our merchants that don't want to put their credit card or their social security number into or their EIN numbers into an online database. I think it's probably more that it's our partners using filling out the paper as part of the sales process, or just that's how they've always done
Correct.
it. But both of those things, when it comes to the online application versus the paper application, we're seeing all these things to the different banks, and each one. How do we define, like, we've got which bank we're putting it through, and what are those options that we have when it comes to the paper application that are kind of solved for us because they just are automatically routed when it comes to the online application?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the online application, there is a lot of defaults that happen in the background that you don't obviously see in the paper application. The sponsoring bank is going to be a huge factor there. A lot of time, the business type will define the sponsoring bank. If you've ever taken a look at our restricted and prohibited list, there's a list of sponsoring banks for the different type of industries. So we will automatically change the sponsoring bank on the online application to fit that business type. And that's based on the MCC code, the merchant category code, right? We have all these definitions versus on the online application, the paper application, there's that restricted list. Thanks, Nate.
Yep.
Go ahead and pull that up for me. I can kind of show.
Let me download
it's
it
very
here.
small. Yeah, it's going to be very small, but on the top row, you'll see the sponsoring banks on top. So those are going to be the different banks that can handle those types of different businesses.
Yeah, and it didn't let me.
It's very small, I know.
Yeah, this is the great live demo here as we show all this. It's trying. Okay, I'm getting out of this.
It's
Hold on.
okay. I'm kind of like digging in the weeds anyways. But what's really back to your question is that all the stuff that we're doing right here on the online application, you don't have to think about it because it's automatically in the system and does it for you. Versus on the paper application, you will have to go find out what is a sponsoring bank if it is kind of a category of a business that might not be in the standard like retail restaurant type of setup. And then you would have to submit that specific paperwork with that sponsoring bank. So that's also a nice part of the online application process that helps take that part away.
So, Mike, if you're starting out in this industry, whether you're new to paper, just new to paper tech, or you're new to the industry as a whole, because it's influenced some of ours, how would you do the application process? What would be your way to jump in and say, hey, I want to get those docs, I want to get that application process started? How would you personally do it?
I personally would use the electronic application. When conditions are right, there is nothing you'll need on paper from a merchant, because while you're talking to them on the phone or sitting with them in their business, you're taking their information as you type into your tablet or your laptop, asking them their name, their personal information, their business information, checking account. You say, Mr. Merchant, I've got your email here. I'm going to send this now to you for your approval. And you might even sit there a few minutes, wait for them to get the email, and help walk them through the process of agreeing to the terms and conditions. And within that visit, you're now able to submit that application to underwriting, and not a single piece of paper has exchanged hands. There is an occasion when you'll enter their bank account information and it will say, this account information does not match our database. Please provide a voided check, a bank letter, a bank statement, or a processing statement. So now you're sitting there with that merchant. If they can get you that right then, you take a picture of it, get it uploaded into the application, and again, send that to them for their approval. Done.
And I think what happens, by the way, thank you, AJ, for saying get the docs. I don't know if you guys saw that, but he commented. I appreciate that. That's where I stole the name from. So AJ's watching it live. Thank you so much for doing that.
There he is.
Hey, so, but I will say this. One of the things that can make the biggest stumbling block is not being organized in how you do it. So if you choose to do paper, if you choose to do online, and you walk in online and you don't walk them through and set the expectation exactly what they need to do, making sure you know exactly how it's going to work and being filled out. That's why doing some of those sample things. Jenny, I know you do this in trainings, and there are several trainings online on the My Paper Tech site that you can just watch on demand, but making sure you understand what they need to have and what they're filling out is really important. Setting that expectation. What are things that you see are speed bumps sometimes, or little bumps in the road that some of our partners use, and they may not set that make it as smooth as it can be for the merchant?
Absolutely. So the most common things that I see is either the voided check or bank statements being required for a business that has a higher ticket. So the voided check comes into play. We do an automatic verification in the background, but for newer businesses or for whatever reason, sometimes that verification doesn't go through, and we will come back later, even if after an account is approved, and say, hey, can we get a copy of a voided check from you for the verification of the bank account? It's a pretty simple process, but it's hard after account has been approved to go back to that. So you can just explain to the merchant, hey, we will have that verification in the background. If you can get us a copy of a voided check, it'll eliminate any future possibilities down the road. Just set that expectation, like Nate said. And then bank statements. If you have a business that has a higher ticket, maybe a high-end furniture store or a contractor doing flooring, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, underwriting will want to see the bank statements of the business. So just know that right off the bat. Go ahead and let the merchant know, can you get these for me now, or they will need to be done later, just to set those expectations up. If you go ahead and explain right off the get-go how it's going to work, be confident and knowledgeable, the process will go so much easier. Absolutely.
It is important to be part of that. And Mike, I think when you're set ahead and you're going through that process, they can also make sure that they can make sure that they know how all that works. What are some of the things at mypapertech.com that they could use? I'm going to bring it up, and you can kind of walk me through just a few clicks. We won't obviously watch any of the training videos right now. That's what they can do later. But what are some of the things? We already clicked on the big green button over here. What are things that they should be able to look at and see in MyPaperTech that would be helpful for our partners?
Well, first off, if you review the application, and Jenny or I, as trainers, and your relationship managers as your as your day-to-day helpers would be glad to walk through that. But as you walk through the application, you can see that it's going to ask for their social security number. It's going to ask for their employer identification number. It's going to ask for their bank account and their routing number, and it will prepare you uh, for that. There are folks out there that send a merchant a list of those documents. Instead of sending them the application, they say, you know what, send me this. I'll fill out the application and I'm going to send it to you for your signature, or I'm going to put it in the online portal for your online approval. So some people simplify it that way. So use the application as a guide.
And then Nate, also just to kind of add on to that, so I'm just going to jump in here, Mike.
Yep.
If you go check out those training videos, scroll down a little bit on, yep, there are additional information. If you scroll to the bottom, we have pricing, what is Edge, and then we also have a section on submitting an application. So scroll down a little bit more, using it within the partner portal. Yeah. There you go, submitting an application via an email, submitting it for an application via paper. So we do have those videos there that you can go check out on mypapertech.com.
And I know we're working on getting those updated right now, and even making sure they're always, because there's always some changes. In fact, I know we're preparing for a change that's coming in March with some new opportunities, but also means some changes to the applications. The nice thing about the online application is you don't have to worry about the changes. We will tell you about them, but you don't have to do them yourselves. If you're using paper, you've got to make sure you're on the newest one, and they do change sometimes. Sometimes the banks ask for a different wording on their disclosures, or they may change on, we may add another acquiring bank. We have a whole plethora of acquiring banks, and we have different processors, and we do most of it on EDPX and most of it on First Fresno right now, but it's not all the way through, and there's all kinds of things that can change there. As we think, I do have a question here, and I think this is back to you, Jenny, when you were talking about getting bank statements, and you asked, can it be processing statements? A lot of times those are both required, especially for high ticket.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So. Absolutely. So the more information that you can obtain, the better. So a processing statement will work. If a merchant says I have a processing statement and a bank statement, that usually wouldn't coincide, right? If you're going to have a processing statement, they're putting this fund somewhere in a bank statement. So if you can, try to get both. The more information you can provide over to our underwriting team, the better. If you have a copy of a driver's license, bank statements, processing, voided check, like the more information that you can give to them, the less questions that they'll come back with. But we try to keep it simple. So if you don't have any of that, submit the application with the merchant's information, their signatures, either on the paper app or the electronic app, and then later on they might ask that down the road. So don't let it hold up the process. If you're with the merchant and they don't have it, just go ahead and get it submitted for approval and then come back there. But we can accept both of them as well.
Go ahead, Mike.
Jenny.
Yeah.
Hey, Abel, I think what Abel is asking is in reference to a checking account that does not match the database. Yes, you can turn in their most recent processing statement as a bank verification document, believe it or not. You're correct.
Oh, wow. See, I actually did not know that one, that we allowed that to be done.
Yeah, that's news to me as well.
So I guess, if they've been processing, it was obviously going through. That's one way to verify the bank. I mean, all these things, we sometimes get frustrated, but it's all to protect you. It's to protect us, all of us together, to ultimately protect the merchant, that someone can't go and, jump in and say, I'm XYZ merchant, and then start getting deposits in their checking account instead of your checking account, and all kinds of things. But it does, it helps to be planned, to plan ahead, to think through it, set those standards, set the expectations, and you will get the docs and you will start getting toward those approvals. Next week, we're going to specifically talk about what to do after you get those approvals and what sometimes you need to do next steps to make sure that they're getting activated and up and running. That's next week. But as you trust the process, we're going to continue walking through that. You've got to get those docs. You got to get that application. You got to hit that submit button. One last thing I just want to and I'll let one of you take. I'll let first one jump in. The thing I see a lot of times, and we try to watch for it because we can see on the back end but a lot of times they'll start the application, whether it's an online or they did it as an ELAP and they typed it in and all the things that go into that, and they don't finish and actually submit it. They don't finish the final steps. What would you say to make sure, what are the last things they need to do to make sure that's all the way in, that it gets to our underwriting and it's a starting of that process?
Do you want to answer that, Mike?
All right, Mike,
sure.
I'll go to you.
Okay. You have to make sure there's always that last step. So I've had a lot of agents call me or email me and said, hey, my merchant said they did it all, but I haven't heard anything back yet. Well, when you go to look in your portal under that enrollment section, It'll be there under completed by merchant. If they've done everything correctly and to the fullest, now you have to go back in, open it up one more time. It's something you can review one more time. Once you click submit, it goes to underwriting. Then it's out of our hands, and then that's when the process takes over and we see things, like 2-hour approvals, 1-hour approvals, things like that, as our underwriting team continues to streamline the process and get us faster and faster approvals.
Love it. All right, closing words as we close out office hours for Groundhog Day. We won't do Groundhog Day again for another year, but closing words, anything that we've missed that we should highlight. The keys, my takeaways are, make sure you're trained. Go to mypapertech.com. If you need further training, go to Mike and Jenny and your relationship manager. They'll make sure you do it. Be prepared. What else am I missing that would be good for our partners to know when they're going to go out there and get those docs?
Don't hesitate. Right. I know we've kind of said a lot like what you need and what might be requested, but also don't let that hold you back. If you have somebody on the phone, they're ready to sign up with you, go for it. And then if any additional information is required, we can definitely have that submitted at a later point. So don't hesitate. Get the docs, get the deal.
Love that. That's my word. You can't say much better than that. Mike, any other closing words?
Get the docs, get the deal. Oh, man, he's going to use that from now on, isn't he? Yeah, we do have a brand new email address, training@payprotech.com. You can reach Jenny and me both there. You know what? Hey, I have a question. Hey, I'd like a half hour sit down about X. Hey, I'm confused about this. You always can reach out to us by phone, training@payprotech.com. Reach out to your relationship managers. And I know we say this all the time, but Jenny and I want to be part of what you're doing and make this easier for you. So take some time if you want to get a little bit ahead of the game, review the video and then go, all right, I need to talk to one of you two. Let's go through this. I'm amazed by how prepared people are for their new agent training when they've taken some time to review the videos ahead of time. Then they come to us and say, oh yeah, I remember that. I'm so comfortable now doing this because I've already watched that. And so we're here. We're here, and that's what makes PayProTech different, is we're here. Look around at the people you know by watching our various shows, by watching our little shows that we do, hopefully at least once a week. You know close to half of our staff members by first name, and that is something you can't find everywhere, I promise you.
All right, love it. Well, thank you guys for everyone who's watched live and has been part of this today. I'm going to get that comment off there. But also later today, we have 3 live shows today. So in an hour and 4 minutes, you can join me live for POS Uncensored Rebooted. We're coming back with the show. We're going to do those every Thursday at 1:30 with Matt Proctor and some of the POS Pros team eventually. But the first several are just going to be Matt and I going over some of the most important things you need to know about point of sale. It's not the other POS, but it is uncensored, and we're going to come with the real truth. We promise that. And then at 2:30 today, we're doing the high five. It was supposed to be this Tuesday. That one kind of moves around because, well, we got some busy people, but we try to make sure you know it. And we're actually going to have a new page where we actually highlight in case we change schedule. You can always find, but you can always subscribe on this YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, ring that bell. Then you know we're live. And most of you watch this afterwards. Thank you for watching. Thanks for following all the way through. And on that, I'll bring everybody up. We'll say goodbye and thank you. We'll see you next week on Office Hours.
Bye.
Bye.